Hello, everyone. Welcome to Genealogy Adventures. I'm Brian Sheffy.
And I'm Danya Williams. How is everybody today? I am really excited because this is my very first time meeting family members of the Settles line who are white. And I'm so excited about it. So, I know that sounds crazy or whatever, but I'm telling you, I'm really excited because I've never been able to do that. Brian has been able to do that with some of his family on his father's side, I believe. Ahmad is the reason why we're able to meet Virginia, Dana, and Holly. Now, just to let you guys know, we are related. Everybody up here is related. And we're all related because of Edward Settles and Martha Ann Williams. So these are our cousins, and I'm excited about it. And I'm just so happy to meet you guys.
I'm excited to meet you too. I'm
Yes.
hoping next year we get to come over to your house because I saw that good food for Thanksgiving.
Oh my God. So I always post what I'm cooking.
It
And
looks so
because
good.
my children love my cooking, and I always post what I'm cooking and everything, and everybody's always coming for me. Hamad sent me a message telling me, I didn't know you could throw down like that.
Yeah, I was
So,
watching all that come up on Facebook and I was like, oh, maybe next year we'll be in
yeah,
person.
maybe next year. Maybe next year. If it's COVID free, then you have the invitation.
All right.
That I'm
Will be.
saying it here. Yes, all three of you have that invitation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Brian, go ahead.
So I was just going to say thank you, everyone. Welcome to the show. So happy to have you here. You know, Donnie and I, we look forward to every single show and all the guests that we book. But we were really excited about this. As I said, for me, I've met loads of my white relatives and my Jewish relatives on both sides of my family tree. But you guys are the first Settles that I've met. So again, I'm really excited about that too. And actually, technically, the first family that we're related to in Edgefield, South Carolina, where we've met white relatives. So that again,
Yes.
very excited about that.
Yes.
But I thought we'd rewind the clock a little bit, go back to the very beginning. And Hamad, could you kind of talk us through how you came across Dana, Holly, and Virginia, and kind of, and then all four of you can kind of talk about what that journey's been like for you.
Well, it started when I was doing research on Edward Settles, and I noticed a family tree that was very detailed, and he was listed there. And I said, "Wow, I need to contact this person." This was in 2013. So my first message to her was in 2013, asking if Edward Settles had any siblings, and she was very nonchalant. She said, "Yes, he does." You know. Then I wrote her back a month later and asked her, did she know about his history of having a son that had relations with an African American slave? And she's very nonchalant. Oh, yes, I knew about that. So I'm thinking, wait a minute. She's so nonchalant about it. I said, maybe she doesn't see my picture. You know, somehow she must think maybe it said my name is Hamad. Maybe she thinks some white guy named Hamad. I don't know what. She was so nonchalant about it. So I wrote her again. I said, do you realize you have African American cousins? She goes, oh yeah, I have African American cousins. Just so like it's no big deal. And that started, you know. And I did about a 2-year research with her. If I would find something, I would let her know. If she would find something, she would let me know. And she was my partner in crime as far as researching the Settle family. And her research is thorough. Like when she gave me information, you cross-referenced it, it was on the money.
Hamad, can I just jump in for a real quick second? So is that information that she grew up hearing? Is that something that was already known in her family, or is that something that she uncovered during her research?
She knew a lot. She was doing research back when there were no computers. She was going to those courthouses and going to Edgefield. She went to Edgefield and going to grave sites before everything became digitized. Right? We can do family research from the comforts of our own home. She started when you had to go out there. So a lot of her information, I'm like, wow, where did you get this? Because she told me when Edward Settle came to Edgefield. And I'm like, where did she get that from? And then I did research when I was able to go to Edgefield and find out she's right. He got there in 1813. So she came in with the old school way of doing family research.
So which ladies, how did you guys, which one of you ladies met up with Hamad? Holly, okay. And how did that happen?
Well, I'm actually already tearing up just hearing all this. So I'm going to try and not cry.
I'm giving you virtual tissues.
I know, right?
Thank you. I remember my mom speaking of Hamad and letting us know that she had connected with him and how excited she was. And so we were all thrilled. We knew my mom was doing a ton of research and her genealogy. I mean, we grew up watching her do that. We grew up watching her fly, across the country and go to places. And it was just such a hunger and a passion that she had. So while she was dealing with, while she was going through this, doing all this, she was also suffering with cancer. And her and Hamad had a beautiful relationship where they were obviously, like you said, sharing information and getting to know each other. And it was just really neat to hear all the stories. We personally didn't have any conversation with him, but we would hear everything. And so the day or the evening actually that our mom passed away, I was holding my mom's phone and just going through pictures and just kind of reminiscing. And a message popped up from Hamad on Facebook. And he was asking how she was doing. And I knew exactly who it was. I hadn't talked to him yet, hadn't spoken with him. But I let him know that she had just passed away, and that began our journey to get to know each other. And it's I won't go into the details of that, but I was the first person to talk to him, and then we all I think we all started connecting with him right after that.
Wow.
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, we'd been hearing a lot about Hamad from the beginning of their relationship. I mean, I'd be over there with my mom and she'd be, going back and forth with him. And I think she just loved Hamad. And my mom were like two peas in a pod. They were definitely, I would say, kindred spirits because you guys, they're just like, oh, Hamad had this, and Hamad, oh, he gave me this and this. And she just adored him. And I know she was looking forward to the day that they could finally meet in person. And
so you had to meet him.
Yeah, so we had to meet him.
Yeah,
you had to meet him.
Yeah. We just would hear about him, and yeah, it was just I think for her and for us, it was just this beautiful, you keep building your family and you keep learning about who you're related to and your family history and all that. And, but you don't always, I think through ancestry and all that, people start reaching out to each other. Oh, look, I've got this cousin, or I've got that cousin. Some people don't respond, some people do. Some, you kind of connect with, and it's like, oh, this is great, but you don't have a lot in common, so it doesn't really go anywhere. But I think for my mom and Hamad, and for us, we just feel a close connection, and I think we just have a lot in common. And so, yeah, that's I think the story. I think the first thing for me, when my mom said, "Oh, I've got this cousin," I don't even remember her saying, "By the way, he's Black." I think it was just kind of like
she just had a cousin.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we knew it was Black, and that there were others and all that. And this is great. I think, part of it's like you find out, oh, I've got this cousin, that cousin. It happened to us right here in town, right here in my hometown, that I found out I have a cousin on my dad's side, and so
showed up at a family reunion. It was kind of strange, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
why
wow.
are you here?
Our sons were on the same baseball team all this time, and all of a sudden we show up at the same family reunion about 5 hours from here, and it's like, wait, we're cousins. So, I mean, it's just, the thing is I think the more genealogy you do, the more you find out, oh, really, this world is filled with, we're related to everybody. We're all,
Yeah.
Eventually.
eventually we're related to everybody. But I think, certain stories are fascinating, and this is a fascinating story. There's heartbreak in it, too. There's a lot of heartbreak in it.
Well, I think it's heartbreak in all of the stories that are like this in one way or another. I think what fascinates me about this story is the fact that you guys are so very open, and you guys are, you and Hamad, the three of you and Hamad have been able to meet up. You guys have pictures of meeting up, and you guys have spoken with each other. You stay on the phone. You're researching. You guys picked up the gauntlet where your mom left off, basically, and you're not shying away from whatever it is that's going to be found. And that's really a big deal in my book, because for me, let me rephrase that. I have met one white cousin that I'm confirmed. Her name is Candace, and Candace she was actually my very first mentor, but we didn't know that we were cousins at first. So we had to, I had to go through the steps to try to figure it out. And then she was busy doing stuff, so I didn't have as much help from her. I could call her and I could ask her questions, but it wasn't like you guys, or like Hamad and your mom. And what is your mother's name?
Dana.
Dana. Okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't like your mom Dana and Hamad. They worked it out together, So being able to have someone to work through it with like that on both sides, both Black and white, I think it's a beautiful story in itself. But what makes it even more beautiful is the genuine love that you already see between the four of you. And I think that's awesome.
I think
Holly's a baby. She's gonna cry.
yeah.
Well,
I was gonna start. I was getting teary too, but I was just gonna add that. It's gonna make me cry too. But Hamad is such a beautiful human, and it really was his relationship with our mom that, sorry.
Okay,
it's okay. Get it together.
You're right.
That I don't know, you meet beautiful people in your life, and it doesn't matter what skin color they have, and we just feel extra blessed that Hamad is our relative. And we've known him now, so mom died in 2015, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've kept in contact with him, mostly on the phone, but I'm going to give him a lot of the credit for continuing to reach out to us and talk to us and encourage us to continue the research. And then we just start having conversations about one of my passions is foster care. And so we would get off on these really long conversations about foster care. And Holly and Hamad were going to college together as adults, and they would get off on long conversations about that. So our relationship really just grew over time on subjects that we have all been passionate, that we share passions about. And then I think, by 2020, when things really got crazy, I felt comfortable enough, after George Floyd, to reach out to Hamad and go, tell me what you're thinking about this, because I don't want to be blind. And I know my relationship with him had grown enough that I felt comfortable that I could speak openly to him. I think it's harder when it's somebody that you don't know really well, but I felt comfortable saying, hey, look, can I talk to you about this? I don't want to be blind. And so we had some really great conversations about that as well. So part of it is that we have a beautiful soul of a cousin in Hamad. I will say that.
Well, it's safe. It's a safe relationship. It's a,
Right.
you know, and again, like Ginny was saying, it doesn't, beautiful souls don't, it's not about skin color. It's not about, you know,
It's a
family
soul.
is not, you know, it's
Yeah.
it's just who's what the heart is. But, you know, we all have different experiences in life. And so that's where, you know, we can learn from each other and all that. You know, again, from anybody in any circumstances. So
Okay.
I was
but
going to pick up on that theme because I was going to say specifically with my father's Sheppy cousins, the beautiful thing is over time we've just become cousins and most of us are connected on Facebook. So we laugh with each other, we joke with each other, but the really nice thing about one meeting some of them in person and then carrying these relationships online is my family actually got an understanding of what some of our family quirks were. Like the Sheppys are a political tribe. And we're a political tribe going all the way back to like early colonial America. Our ancestors were in the US Senate and the US Congress, but we're a very political family. We're very socially aware. His Rhone side of the family, they like to party. Even in like 1750, they were notorious for the parties that they used to throw. So we get a kind of conviviality from that side of the family. But the thing that I love the most is starting probably in 2015 with the previous election, is a lot of my white cousins started private messaging me, going, we don't really understand what this institutional racism stuff is about, but we see that a lot of you are like really, really angry about policing and social justice, and we know that none of you are stupid, so we just really want to learn. You know, we want to talk to you and find out kind of more about what's behind that. So have you found that by speaking to, by getting to know cousins who don't look like you kind of opens up that door to difficult conversations?
yeah, for sure. I think because we were talking about, you know, we were all raised in California. So, you know, different parts of the United States are probably different, but we didn't see racism really. I mean, we know about it. We were taught about it in school. We know all those things. We had, you know, Black kids. We had friends that were Black. I mean, they were definitely the minority in our little neighborhood. But they were always the popular ones. We were talking about one of them was the homecoming king. And, you know, I even remember thinking, you know, he's kind of cute. You know? It was way out of my league, but anyways. So that's kind of what we grew up with, but knowing that it existed, you know, it wasn't in our world. So it does help to have people that you know, because it is kind of scary sometimes to maybe ask somebody to feel like you might offend them or something or whatever, but it's nice to have somebody safe, you know, or just that you have a connection to that you know is going to be honest. And you know, so
Well, actually,
I know. Oh, go ahead, Brian.
I was going to say what it sounds like is like you guys in Hamad kind of really established a trust pretty early on, which, you know, I think is a testament to all of you.
Yeah.
You all felt that kind of safety and trust.
Absolutely. I can answer that just because right after my mom passed away, Hamad and I became really close and we'd talk almost every day. And during that time, I was leaving an abusive marriage of 20 years. So it was like literally a month and a half after my mom passed away. And because, again, I think my sister mentioned that we were both actually psychology students in college. You know, we had a lot in common and we talked a lot and there was a huge amount of trust. I was able to share with him, you know, things that I was going through or like the detox from a narcissistic abusive relationship. And because he was studying this, he was very interested in it. So we would talk, you know, in depth about, you know, what it meant and how, you know, the effects of it and everything. So
Psychological damage.
Totally, all of it. And, you know, to be honest with you, there's some cousins that I barely talk to, but I talk to him at least, you know, at that time it was almost every day. And now it's, you know, at least once a week, but I'm closer to him than I am some of our cousins that our first cousins. So
that's a trait in genealogy research.
Really?
I think so.
That's
I'm just at that point because Brian and I, matter of fact, all three of us, we talk more with each other probably than we do the family that we grew up with.
Huh.
Yeah, I mean, like Brian, you just like Hamad said that your mom was his partner in crime. Brian is my partner in genealogical crime. He is my partner in genealogical crime, and we knock it all down, me and Brian. But
we're actually missing one of our other partners in crime.
Right. I was just getting ready to say that. We call Hamad and Loretta in, and we bring them in, and there are days where the four of us will sit on the computer. Now that we're doing the Zoom a lot, we'll do the Zoom and just sit and research together.
That's so cool.
That's a great way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's a genealogical trait. I am very close with the people that I have found via DNA and via research. Almost as, in some instances, some of them I'm actually closer with. And some parts of my family, I'm closer with the ones that I found now than the ones that I grew up with.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Kind of talking about what Brian was talking about, his Sheffy line being very, very politically active, and it kind of is a trait that kind of comes down. I was just thinking as you guys were all talking, Hamad being a psychology student, Holly being a psychology student. My mom was very into, she was a teacher, and Dana Jr. is a teacher into child development, and I'm doing a social work degree right now. So I think there's definitely a
we all have a heart for children and
we all have, there's definitely a thread, probably a genetic thread here of compassion for the children and the hurting, for sure.
For certain. So I guess my next question, how did your family, and each one of you could take your time and answer it, or get a couple of minutes answering, how did your families react when you told them, okay, so we have a Black cousin? Like your children, how did what was that about? Because I want to know if it's the normal reaction that most white families go through when
Well, you want me to start, you guys? It's all going to be pretty similar, but for my kids and my family, everybody thought it was extra cool. Like, that's super cool to have Black family members, So for my kids, I have 5 kids. 2 of them are adopted from South America, and we did their DNA. Gosh, Hamad, I remember talking to you about this. Was that 4 years ago?
4 years ago.
Yeah, probably about 4 years ago. And they're adopted from Colombia, South America, and they're about 1/3 Native American, 1/3 Spanish, and 1/3 African. I was gonna say African American. I guess it's still South America, still the Americas. Man, let me tell you, they thought that was the coolest thing ever. So for our kids, they grew up, Michael Jordan and all the greatest athletes are African American. So Juan Pablo, one of my boys, he's really into dance, and Les Twins are his idols. And so for him to have African American ancestry was extra cool for both of my adopted boys. So I remember talking to Hamad about it, and Hamad was actually really surprised.
Okay. Yeah, I think our kids, they all just think this is the coolest thing, and I would agree. I think for all of us, they're totally fine with it. It's great, and I would say they actually think it's extra cool. So
right.
It's like, because they have a lot of idols that are Black, you know, like just and two, I mean, this is a conversation I had with Hamad, and I asked him about it because my son a number of years ago dressed up as Black Panther for Halloween, you know, because Black Panther was just the coolest. Mm-hmm. And somebody told him, oh, that's not okay, that you can't do that. And so I think our kids are being raised in a very different environment than we were raised in. And they're being kind of sensitized to a lot of things that I don't know within the white groups. They're thinking, oh, you know, this, but then, you know, other people might not think. So I was able to ask Hamad, I said, was that bad for my son to dress up as Black Panther, you know? And I, you know, he said, no, I think that's great, you know, because it for my son, it was like, oh, he's so cool. It wasn't like, I understand the whole thing, you know, if you're making fun of somebody, but it was
an idol.
Emulation. Here's a boy that just thinks, you know, this is so cool. But, you know, again, trying to be sensitive to everybody's feelings about that. But it was nice to just have somebody to be able to ask about that. But again, they're just totally fine and great with the idea that they have Black cousins. And, you know, I think some of them sometimes wish they were Black themselves, you know, I mean, seriously, I mean, it's just kind of the
right. I'll talk about this after Holly goes. I raised my children in Hawaii, so I can talk a little bit along those lines. So Hamad and I've talked about this as well, but Holly, you can
and I want Hamad to answer this question too, because we have people who would like to hear his side as well. So Holly, you go, and then Hamad.
Honestly, nothing different. Just the kids were super excited. That's it. I mean, there was nothing else to say. Just thrilled, really. They just wanted to know more about him. And when they did get to meet most of all of our kids got to meet Hamad and his wife and his kids. And it was, again, I'm sure you've read in some of the things that we've written, that it was just one of the most amazing moments. And they all still talk via social media and Facebook. And that was just such a cool day to be able to meet everybody. So yeah.
Hamad, what's your feeling? How did your, you know, I mean, I guess, and I want to apologize because we already know you know, as far as Hamad is concerned, and I think that's why Hamad is like, let them talk and let them get that out, because the three of us, Brian, Hamad, and myself, already know. But Hamad, you need to speak on this too, because they don't know. The people in our fan group, they don't know. We have a lot of people watching right now, and so what were your feelings when you met the family, when you met the kids? You know, where were you?
Okay, so I reached out Holly at first, and what I was blown away by was the openness. Remember, I do the research on the Settles family, so I'm used to rejection. I've had, this year, I've been rejected like 15 times. Horrible emails, horrible
Black
messages.
And white.
Black and white.
But make sure you say that part, black and white.
Black and white, because some Blacks, they feel they're hiding something.
Mm-hmm.
But mostly, the rejection is horrible. You have to have thick skin to research the Settles.
I bet.
I was blown away by the openness. So Holly goes, here's my Facebook, here's my email, here's my number, I'm thinking, what the, you know, that kind of openness. And then she told me, I already know you. Your mom already told me about you. So eventually I reached out to the other sister. Mm-hmm. They already knew me. I reached out to the other one. They already knew me and they were open. They just accepted me immediately, which I'm not used to that. That was very, very shocking. But that speaks to how Dana raised them. And it speaks to how, when I told her, you know, you have African-American cousins, she's like, yep, I know, yep. Like it's no big deal. I was like, what, why, you know, so what, you know? And I invited her to our Settles group, and also Living on the Edgefield group, and she joined with no problems. You know, so
did she ever say anything?
She was in the Living on the Edgefield. Yeah, she was in Living on the Edgefield, and she was very active in the group.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, and when she passed away, I sent a message to the group, and everyone, including you, commented on it.
Now, I remember commenting on that part, but I didn't know that she was active in the actual group.
Yeah, she was active, which
Yeah.
amazed me
Oh
because
man, I'm
she
mad.
wasn't there just to sit back. She was there and she was speaking up, and this happened, and she would always talk about the record she had. Very open people, very open, very accepting.
Wow.
So
I
just
have to
to give you an
say,
example about what Hamad means by having a thick skin, I'll just give a really quick example. Donnie and I and Hamad have another set of white family members in Edgefield. Donnie had this experience first. I think I came in behind her about maybe 18 months later. So this is white family members who are DNA cousins. They are on my DNA match list. They are
Mine
on
too.
DNA match list. They're on every, if you're in Edgefield, they're on everybody's match list. Let's be honest about that. And I asked for information because I was looking for an estate inventory and a will that I just couldn't find anywhere. She came back straight immediately. I do not have Black family members. Period. End of discussion. I'm
Now
like,
the thing is that when before Brian talked to her, I told him that that was exactly what she was going to say. I think we just lost Jenny.
yeah.
Yeah, hopefully she'll get back. She'll be able to get back in. But I told him, I said, well, she's going to tell you that she doesn't have Black family members. And he was like, are you serious? I said, without a doubt. And I took him through my entire story and how she just really just lied. You know, she just told me I don't have Black. She was nice. She was meaner to me than she was to him because she just came out and said, I don't have Black people in my family, and hung up the phone. I was like, oh, okay. And then when I met her face to face, oh, we're all related. When I tell y'all, I'm a mouthy person, and I don't really I don't cut my tongue for nobody. So my Sheila, God rest her soul, I said, what the? And she said, come here, baby. Come here, baby. Just come on over here. And I'm like, but that's not how she was. She was like, come, just bring it in. Just come over here. Cause she had to shut me down. Cause I was like, well, just, when I talked to you, I was getting ready to I was looking ready to out her. I was gonna out her, but she was like, no, just come on, just come on. So then she went even further and researched my family. Yeah. But yet you're not gonna call me my family over the phone, but in front of everybody, you're gonna say, oh yeah, we're all related. But you can't do it publicly. Yeah.
And it was even worse than that because the whole group of them, because there was about 15 members of this family that were all amongst our DNA matches. They made their trees private overnight. Like right after I contacted them, family trees private. So because DNA is DNA and you can't tell everyone that you're related to what to do, I was eventually able to find what I needed to find from a more distant family member. But that was their immediate reaction. That was the first time I'd actually had someone respond to me like that.
Yeah. And I can't, I mean, I know that happens and I don't understand it, I guess. I can't, I mean, I know people have prejudice. There's people that are racist, or I don't know. I mean, I don't know what goes on in their mind. And it's kind of interesting because I think about the fact that my mom was raised, in the South, but in the South too, I think people have this idea that everybody in the South is prejudiced. It's not just in the South, it's anywhere. I mean, I've met Northerners who were racist or whatever, right. But we think about, my mom who, she had there was a Black maid that partially raised my mom. And I think I mean, on one hand, maybe the older generation looked at Black people as inferior or whatever, and they had the lower station. But I think for a lot of these kids, like my mom, her name was Josephine Doss, but my mom couldn't say Josephine, so she called her Jofa. And so that's how we always heard about Jofa. And my mom just adored her. She was like a mother to her. And so I wonder for my mom if, well, I know that she just had a special connection with Jofa. She was very much a mother to her, and she would always talk about her with respect and love. And so I think my mom, that probably already gave her that familial connection with somebody that, as you said, looked different than her, because she adored her. And I remember when I was little, I got to meet Jofa shortly before Jofa died. So she brought us back to meet her, back to Arkansas.
So
yeah.
that's what is that where your mom grew up, in Arkansas?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was born and raised there, and yeah.
Interesting, isn't it, guys?
Well,
I'm saying that. So let me tell y'all, I think Brian gets it. I don't know if Hamad has picked it up yet, but back in the what was it, in the 1880s? Was it? Back in the, okay, Hamad picked it up. Back in the 1880s, there were over 5,000 Edgefieldians that moved to Arkansas.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah, it was, and yeah. And we have a connection in Arkansas that I know. I have a lot of DNA relatives who come straight out of Arkansas and have no idea where or why or what it is, but more than likely, maybe it was some of those that actually moved from Edgefield to Arkansas to populate. Jenny is having a reboot problem with her computer, so I'm trying to help her get back on.
Yeah, I know. I sent her the link to try and copy and paste it, but I think the issue is she doesn't have the app on her phone, because I said maybe she could just do it.
I sent her the meeting ID number and password, so hopefully that'll help.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's interesting to hear that she actually grew up in Arkansas, and that's interesting.
Yeah, Little Rock.
Newport. Yeah, Newport.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Went to school in Little Rock. My bad.
Yeah, high school later there. But yeah, so that was her upbringing. So, and let her join. Yeah, so, but yeah, she did a lot of, and her mother was one that started all the genealogical research as well. So
I think Brian has a question. It might be the same question that I have, because we have that link, that connection. So Brian, go ahead. If not, I'll ask it afterwards.
Not a question, more of an observation. But what I was going to say is, again, I've always appreciated Hamad and Loretta's enthusiasm, because I thought I had my European settles kind of done, because there's a settles family kind of heritage lineage book. So, and it looks really impressive. I mean, it goes all the way back to Yorkshire in England, and everyone's kind of there. And then Hamad's like, yeah, I've got some really bad news for you. There's a lot of issues with that book. And he was right. I had to pretty much delete my whole settles line and just start from scratch.
Yeah, I don't. Oh yeah, let me be clear. Let me be clear. I don't research, you guys.
You just follow along.
I leave that stuff to Loretta and Hamad. I refuse to get on the settles research. I refuse. They always try to pull me in, Hamad and Loretta. Every now and then they do some little stuff, and they're like, well, this is their Danya. What do you think? I'm like, I'm not doing this stuff. No, because the settles line is crazy.
Well, to give me some examples. I did some research and I found some.
It's so difficult. Like when I first started to do Hamad's line, it's too much intermarrying. I think that's number one. The intermarrying has just thrown me to, it gives me like this unbelievable headache. And I'm looking at it like, never mind, I don't want to do it anymore. and then you have, so the thing about Edgefield is we have certain families that will take their name and change it, and you don't know why. And so you're constantly looking for them, but they didn't change their name and became somebody else. So with the Settles family, that has happened a lot. And I already got that with them daggone Yeldales. So I'm, which is my mom's family, I'm just like, I can't get with this.
And you have spelling variations because it's settle without an S, with an S, subtles. And I forget all the myriad of surname variations. Then on top of that, you have so many repeating first names, like coming across a Francis or a Frank, settles in Fauquier County, Virginia. I'm like, well, which one of the 9 Francis Settles in my tree are you? Oh, you're a new one. Thanks for that.
Right. Yeah. Because it's a lot of
driving you crazy.
Yeah. We have one person who said, come on, Danya, it can't be that as bad as the Petersons. Yeah, it's as bad. Yeah, it's about as bad as the Petersons, which is another family that you guys are related to.
Oh.
Yeah, that's another family that you guys are connected to in a really, really big way. I don't know if Hamad told you, but the Settles family, and you guys let me know if I'm wrong, the Settles family, the Holloways, the Adams, the Brookses, and the Butlers were the 5 big families in Edgefield. Am I correct, guys? Did I get those names right?
Oh, Holloway and Matthews as well.
Matthews. I said Holloway. I didn't say Matthews. Yeah. So we come from the founding families, all of us. Actually come from the founding families of Edgefield. But yeah, I can't stand researching the Settles.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because, you know, any research you do, I mean, even I remember when my granny was doing research and she'd find somebody that was infamous or somebody that was famous, you know, it's like, oh, we're related to so-and-so. And then, oh, we're related to so-and-so, you know, and it's like, you know, eventually you're going to find you're related to some really bad people and, or some really crazy people or some really exciting people, or before this, I was kind of looking up and going along the ancestry line, and who knows, maybe you're going to say, oh no, the ancestry is all wrong. Hamad, maybe you can tell me.
Hamad, I won't say a word. I won't say a word.
But I mean, it's like, oh, we're related to Robert the Bruce, you know, King of Scotland. We're directly descended from his younger brother. But then later, it's like, we're directly descended from, I have it written down, King Charles the 6th or the 4th, the Mad. So King Charles the Mad from France. So it's like, oh, good. We got some, you know, so, and some of those royal people were, you know, not very nice people.
They were out there. But I've got an even more immediate one for you. Are you familiar, right before the Civil War happened, on the Senate floor, there was a senator from South Carolina that nearly killed the representative from Massachusetts. So Preston Brooks, Charles Sumner. Preston Brooks, he went up to the Senate floor, I believe, the Senate, brandishing and nearly beat this congressman to death.
Wow.
He's your family.
That's my direct uncle.
Hey.
He's also your family member.
And he's also your family member. I'm directly connected to him. Like I mean, that was they were something else. But it's so weird. And I think Dana, was it you that I was talking to for a long time?
I think you were
talking. It was either you or Virginia.
It was me.
It was Virginia.
That was the one. Hey, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Talk loud.
Yeah, it was either, you know, I was telling her that with Preston, you want to hate him, but you can't, because you end up, you know, seeing parts of yourself in those, in even in those bad people. You can see how you were shaped and where it came from, certain ways that you are, certain things that you do. You can't deny it. And I know that there's some people that just don't want to,
But
get that.
with Preston, a lot of that aggression had to do with his family. You
Yep.
could cross talk Preston, and he would. I think I get the sense of him that he would take it in stride.
Yep.
But you go for Papa or any of his siblings. Well, that
Any
was
of
it.
them.
Loves
You couldn't do anything, like nothing. You couldn't touch his family. His family was everything. And my family is everything. And there are things that I have read when I did research for him, and I've actually said it. I'm here in the 2000s. This man was back in the 1800s. And I've actually said exact words like, well, I live here. And if you got an issue, you can come and see me. And in so many words, this was something he said to somebody. He was like, look, you got a lot of smack. You got a lot of talk coming out your mouth. If you have a problem, come and see me. I live here. And he put that in an article. He put that in a news article without any problem. And I was like, oh my God, I'm just like this man. Like my temper. I was like, oh, I got his temper. I am just like this man. And then, yeah, so it's really weird. But Hamad, did you let them know that Edward Settles actually was the guardian of a free person of color?
I did not. No, we're in the process of writing a book. So that was going to come up in our book, our Settle book. We're motivated by two all-stars, you and Brian. And I'm going to get with you about how to start off, because we have a lot of information. It's just a matter of how to arrange it and how to start.
Get started, yeah.
Well, you're going to share that there? Just share real quick for the audience.
Well, and the thing is, I don't know what held me off from telling them. It sounds really good, but I wonder about his intentions at that time.
Yeah.
Was it something he had to do because you aren't in the court? It's your job to do it, or was it out of his heart? Because I've seen him change. At one time, he put in his will that Martha Ann and her youngest children are going to be held together. That was in 1856. By 1860, he's like, sell them all.
Wow.
He changed.
But with Rebecca, what can I tell him?
Tell him.
Okay. Well, there's a woman by the name of Rebecca Bug who was a free person of color. And long story short, Edward was her guardian. When people are free people of color, they still, even though they're free, they still had to have a guardian or someone over them. But it was something about Rebecca that it seems, which is where Hamad is coming from with the intent. Something was different about her. He won court cases for her to get land. He went as far as to buy her husband from slavery and leave him in trust for their youngest daughter. So he kind of freed him. He freed this man. And we don't know why.
No idea.
A mystery to solve. Wow.
Yeah, so it's been that's been something that they all had, that Hamad, and notice I'm saying that Hamad, Brian, and Loretta have every now and then looked into, mainly Hamad and Loretta, but notice I'm not doing it.
All this is all the stuff of a blockbuster movie, it's like, wow.
Oh, honey, Edgefield is a blockbuster movie.
Like, wow.
Edgefield.
That's part of the writing that I would like to, for us to get into. And some of it you really can't, because we can't get into their heads. But for me, being a teacher and I love to write and stuff like that, it's like getting behind the motivations of these real people. I mean, if it's a fictional story, then you can write whatever you want. But yeah, it's like, what was going through their minds? And I don't know if we'll be able to find out some of that,
You'll get into the head the more that you're researching. But as a teacher, has the research changed how you teach your students?
With this particular research?
Well, I mean, just in general, because I know for the three of us, history is not what it was, what we learned in school. It's just not what we learned in school.
Mm-hmm.
And it's made, and the history that we've learned, the changes, like, okay, taking Preston Brooks, for example, I didn't know that that was my 3 times great uncle. So, but I learned about him in school because I learned more about Charles Sumner, the abolitionist, than the man that actually beat him. I don't even think I learned the man's name that beat him on the Senate floor in high school or in junior high. I just knew that he was beat because he said this speech, the Kansas-Nebraska Act, and they didn't like, and it was a problem.
Mm-hmm.
That was all that I knew. But then when you turn around, now I'm looking at this in a whole nother eyesight, and I'm like, oh my God, this man actually had something to do with me while I was in school. And I'm sitting around and I have all of my white friends learning about people that they may be connected to. And guess what? I was connected. Now, was it a bad person? Yeah, it was. But the fact that I had somebody to be connected to in school, learning about it, we as African Americans, we don't have that. They don't teach that. But we learn that history for everybody else. And we're just there, and all we know is that we were a part of slavery. That's it.
Right. Yeah. So
did it affect you as a teacher, the history that you're learning now? Does it affect the way that you're teaching the kids?
I think the way it affects it is it just adds more layers and depth to the history. And for me, one of the ways I like to try to teach history is more hands-on, more story-oriented. I mean, textbooks are great, but as a kid, as a student, I couldn't stand textbooks. It would just be so dry. I'd try to read and my mind would wander. But so I like to do, whether it's role playing or games or stories. So like with my students, and I also homeschooled my kids, I would always, have books like this book. I love these kids books. So I got this.
You got it.
I got it after last week.
Oh,
So,
wow.
but because this is the teacher in me, I just love books so I've always had books like on Benjamin Banneker and Frederick Douglass and, all of these people back when I taught so many years ago. I taught 5th grade for 4 years. So I did teach American history for 4 years. But yeah, I think it's a little more simplistic when you're teaching general history, slavery, we always, and even in Holly and Jenny and I, we all learned about slavery as kids and racism and Jim Crow and some of the horrible things. But yeah, I think the idea that we're more interconnected and two, just some of these other stories within the stories is very fascinating. So does it affect the way I would teach? Yes, just because I could bring in, hey, here's this story, but also, like you were saying, it's like you're finding I'm not just descended from the slaves, I'm also descended from some of the slave owners.
Right.
And that, yeah, so I don't think we ever thought about that as kids, and it doesn't sound like you did either.
So not as a kid, no. It didn't. None of that stuff didn't dawn on me until I started researching back in 1996. By that time, I had 2 children by then, and it just didn't. I started. The more I learned in my research, the more I was like, man, we missed out on a lot. It was a lot of things that just was not taught in school. And I don't mean just we as Black people. I'm talking about we as my friends that I went to school with. We missed out on a lot because I think it would make a difference culturally for white students to learn the same things that I'm learning, or for any other opposite race to learn the same thing that I'm learning, as far as all of this is concerned, it'll give a different kind of respect. Because, for example, me learning that there were 1,500 Black representatives that was in, whether it was state, local, or federal government,
Yeah.
that's not taught in schools.
Right. I totally agree. That needs to be taught. That, you know, the businesses that a lot of Blacks started right after.
Yes.
I mean, there was a millionaire lady in LA, you know, I can't remember her name now. She got out, she left slavery, came out to California, did what was it?
Was that Madame Walker?
What's her name?
Madam Walker.
I couldn't.
Oh,
He said Madam Walker.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, she died a millionaire and she had come out of slavery, you know, so there were all these entrepreneurs, you know, they were set free and yes, exactly. Those are stories that, I mean, Benjamin Banneker was a good story, you know, that kind of story. And
they only picked like 2 or 3.
Yeah, exactly.
And unfortunately, in our culture, we always feel like only one person can be this. Or, okay, you know, you only have one person that can really go into this.
Yeah, then I'll write some more children's stories. That's mine.
That's right. I was, you know, I'm just going to add in here that I remember, you know, learning our cursory. Here's slavery, South bad, North good. Whites are bad, you know, Blacks were oppressed, and coming home to my mom and saying, you know, how could you, you know, not that she really could have chosen to be, you know, where she was born, you know, she didn't have any choice over her skin color or where she was born. But of course, you know, as a teenager, you're kind of sassy and like, you know, self-righteous. How could you be a part of this, you know, and she would tell me, Jenny, you are not learning the whole story. You know, you really, really aren't. And it's interesting because one of the people we learn about is Booker T. Washington. But I just started reading some of Booker T. Washington's writings, and oh my goodness, what an intelligent man. And some of the stuff he talks about is how he was talking about, you know, what are you going to do with the slaves? And I guess there was a movement at one time like, oh, you know, we all just need to go back to Africa, right? And he was like, obviously that's not happening. And he was saying, you know, honestly, the media is doing a really bad job because Blacks and whites get along a lot better than we're letting people on, even back then. So it was pretty, it's pretty amazing. I plan on reading more.
But yeah, Mom, just going back to Mom, she would always say, it's not
what you're reading. It's so much richer than that.
So much more to it. Yeah.
Well, guys, this hour went quickly. Go ahead, Brian.
Unfortunately, didn't have time to get the 4 of you to answer the question I really wanted to ask. Are you all on Facebook?
Yes.
If I send you a link to the video, can you post your reply to this question in the comments? Because I'm sure that there's a lot of people who are watching this who are thinking about reaching out to cousins who don't look like them, different ethnicity, maybe religion, different race. What advice would you give them?
Great question.
Yeah, so we're going to share that link with you guys. We'll share the link of the video and you put it up there. But I'm so glad, and you know, maybe we could do another Zoom, just us, and we could just talk.
That would be great.
I want to do that because I'm so excited. So
and we're going to get out there. We're going to get out there to Edgefield.
Well, I'm not in Edgefield. I'm in DC.
That's right.
I'm actually not far from Hamad. Actually, all 3 of us, we live right here. So the next time y'all are in the area with Hamad, I do not want to see you.
Oh yeah.
And then we have our reunions, and I want you there. So yeah.
That'd be awesome. I love it.
Will this be the first time you guys will have ever gone to Edgefield?
Yes.
Yes.
If you go,
never.
Because I have yet to make it. I was supposed to go this year, but COVID happened, had to cancel everything. But I am dying to go.
Yes.
Next year, guys, in September. Let's go.
Yeah. All right.
It'll be amazing.
Yeah.
But Brian, you want to talk about next week's show?
Next week's show, we are speaking with some of the founders and members of an organization called Coming to the Table, which is kind of with this precursor. Actually, we've had two kind of precursor shows on that. So it's already in our events. We'll be posting information about it tomorrow and Tuesday. Look forward to seeing you next Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here.
Yay. Thank you guys. Don't hang up though. Don't hang up.
Okay.
All right.